Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The Klyros expanse burned crimson, a nebula of swirling gas that devoured light, its tendrils coiling like blood in the void. Known as the Graveyard of Stars, it was a realm where spacers whispered of doom. Lieutenant Marcus Kane gripped the controls of the scout ship Starlance, his calloused hands steady as he piloted through a jagged field of asteroids, each rock a looming blade in the darkness. Alarms screamed as an unseen energy surge rocked the cockpit, the screens flickering with chaotic signals. A veteran pilot of the United Earth Expeditionary Force, Marcus had faced plasma storms and black holes, but this strange pulse sent a chill down his spine, as if the nebula itself were watching. His mission was simple on paper: survey Klyros for habitable worlds to save a resource-starved Earth. Yet this place, with its blood-red glow and whispers in the void, felt unlike any space he'd ever charted. Marcus clenched his jaw, his sharp eyes scanning the sensor array. "Easy, girl," he muttered to Starlance, as if the ship were his only ally in this abyss. A sudden flash pierced the gloom, not from the nebula, but from an object drifting weightlessly among the debris. His heart pounded. A woman, her black hair flowing like ink in water, her naked form enveloped in a shimmering silver aura. Her skin gleamed metallic, unmistakably alien, yet her violet eyes, wide with awe and fear, held something human. "What the hell?" Marcus breathed, his soldier's instincts screaming to keep distance, to assess the threat. But his heart, the compass that had guided him through countless near-deaths, urged him closer. This was no wreck or debris, this was a living soul, and she needed him. He activated Starlance's retrieval arm, his fingers dancing over the controls with a pilot's precision. But as the arm extended, a crimson energy beam tore through the void, nearly incinerating the ship's nose. Marcus gritted his teeth, banking Starlance behind an asteroid to dodge a second blast. "Someone doesn't want me poking around," he growled, eyes locked on the woman. The arm deftly pulled her into the airlock, and Marcus vaulted to the cold metal floor as the hatch hissed open. He knelt beside her, breath ragged, checking for signs of life. Her silver skin shimmered under the cockpit's dim lights, as if forged from starlight. Her violet eyes fluttered open, and in that moment, Marcus felt the universe collapse into her gaze, fear, pain, but also a yearning he couldn't yet name. "Who are you?" he asked, voice urgent but laced with gentleness, his hand brushing the pistol at his hip. She trembled, lips parting, her voice melodic like wine through the nebula. "I don't know. Only pain. And cold." Her words pierced Marcus like a blade, stirring a buried ache, the loss of comrades, the weight of years in the void. He yanked off his thermal jacket, draping it over her shoulders, an act born of instinct amid the roar of the ship's engines. "I'm Marcus Kane," he said, eyes locked on hers, willing warmth into the void's chill. "You're safe with me." She clutched the jacket, slender fingers gripping the fabric, her gaze searching his face as if seeing light for the first time. "Safe?" she whispered, the word foreign yet heavy with longing, a prayer never before spoken. A sudden explosion rocked Starlance, hurling Marcus toward the console. Sensors wailed, the screens flashing warnings of an approaching ship, sleek black, its angular form cutting through the nebula with terrifying precision. "Damn it!" Marcus muttered, lunging for the pilot's seat, hands clamping the controls. He glanced at the woman, now gripping the co-pilot's chair, her violet eyes sharp with alertness. "Know anything about these guys?" he asked, voice edged. She shook her head, but her eyes betrayed a buried memory, a nameless fear. Marcus tightened his grip, jaw set. This encounter was no accident. That obsidian-smooth ship was hunting her. And whatever it meant, Marcus knew one thing: he'd plunged into a storm far beyond any mission, one that would test not just his skills, but the unyielding heart of humanity. Starlance streaked through the Klyros Nebula, a silver arrow piercing a crimson haze where light twisted like bloodied waves. Its cloaking systems hummed at full capacity, the hull emitting faint energy pulses to mask its trail from unseen eyes. Marcus Kane, hands steady on the controls, split his focus between piloting and the enigmatic woman in the co-pilot's seat. She, with silver skin glinting under the nebula's red glow, clutched the spare flight suit he'd given her, her violet eyes haunted as they stared into the void. Marcus stole a glance, his gut churning with a mix of soldier's caution and an inexplicable pull, as if she were a puzzle he was destined to solve, even at the cost of his life. "You okay?" he asked, voice low but warm with concern. She hesitated, slender fingers tightening on the chair's edge, then nodded faintly. "Lirien," Marcus said, offering the name like a lifeline to pull her from the abyss of anonymity. She repeated it, her voice a melody like wine through the nebula. "Lirien." The word carried a timid spark, as if the name granted her a fragment of identity. Marcus flashed a brief smile, but his eyes sharpened, returning to the sensor array. Starlance was still fleeing, and the obsidian-smooth ship, its hull gleaming like liquid stone, hadn't given up the chase. Lirien shivered, her violet eyes clouding as fractured memories surfaced. "I see sterile chambers," she whispered, her hand instinctively gripping Marcus's, cold as metal yet strangely warm. "Faceless beings, cloaked in glowing crystal, and a hum, like it wanted to drown me." Her voice broke, laced with pain. "The architects. They made me, to be nothing. A tool." Marcus's jaw clenched, rage simmering. The silent architects, a spacer's myth, an alien collective obsessed with absolute order, stripping individuality to craft perfect creations. Their technology dwarfed humanity's, but their cold, emotionless logic chilled Marcus to the core. "You're no tool," he said, voice firm, his hand brushing hers, feeling a strange warmth pulse through her skin. "You're here, with me, and that makes you something more." Lirien's eyes softened, a faint smile breaking through her fear, like a star piercing a storm. "You're kind, you feel so much," she said, voice soft but awestruck. "It's like fire, burning, unstoppable." Marcus chuckled, leaning closer, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "That's us humans. Messy, stubborn, and we don't quit, even when the universe is against us." His words were a vow, a thread binding two souls in the frigid void. The sensor screamed, shattering the moment. The screen flared, revealing the obsidian ship, now closer, its hull reflecting the nebula's glow. "Hold on!" Marcus shouted, throwing Starlance into a reckless spiral, dodging an asteroid as crimson energy beams tore through space. Lirien clung to the chair, her violet eyes flashing as buried combat instincts awoke, sharp and primal. "They want me," she said, voice cold, no longer trembling. "But I want to choose." Marcus glanced at her, heart racing at the fire in her, victim no more, but a warrior rising. "Then choose," he said, tossing her a pulse pistol. Their fingers brushed as she caught it, a spark jolting through them, as if the universe thrummed with their connection. The architect ship closed in, its weapons charging with a low, menacing hum. Marcus wove Starlance through debris, each maneuver a dance with death. But a strange signal from deep within the nebula made him frown, not architect, but human, encoded with expeditionary force ciphers. Ally or foe? Before he could analyze, a small explosion rocked Starlance, emergency lights flashing red. Marcus dove to check, finding smoke rising from the engine bay, a tiny sabotage device glinting with alien metal. "Damn it!" he growled, eyes sweeping the cockpit. Lirien stood there, pistol in hand, her gaze sharp but anxious. "Someone on this ship doesn't want us alive," Marcus said, voice low as a blade. The crimson nebula outside seemed to hiss, as if the universe itself were closing in. The Klyros Nebula blazed scarlet, a cosmic ocean swallowing light, its swirling gases roaring in the void. The architect ship, its obsidian hull gleaming like liquid stone, unleashed crimson energy beams, slicing space like the scythes of death. Marcus Kane, hands clamped on Starlance's controls, piloted through a jagged asteroid field, each turn a gamble with survival. Sweat beaded on his brow, but his eyes were razor-sharp, unwavering. A veteran pilot, he was no stranger to dancing with death, but this time was different. The woman beside him, Lirien, with violet eyes ablaze and silver skin shimmering, was more than a passenger. She was the reason his heart pounded, not just from danger but from an undeniable pull, a force he couldn't name. Lirien moved with otherworldly grace, as if forged from the nebula itself. She gripped the pulse pistol Marcus had given her, slender fingers activating it with chilling precision. "I know how to fight," she said, voice steady, no longer trembling as it had at their meeting. "They trained me, but never expected I'd use it against them." A spark flared in her eyes, a flame igniting in the dark. Marcus grinned fiercely, a mix of admiration and defiance. "Love that kind of thinking," he replied, voice rumbling over the engine's roar. They moved as one, as if they'd fought together for lifetimes, Marcus with humanity's reckless courage, Lirien with architect-enhanced reflexes, swift as light. Her shots hit true, his evasive maneuvers pulling them from the jaws of energy beams. A sudden explosion rocked Starlance, sparks spraying the cockpit, screens flashing red warnings. Lirien staggered, but Marcus caught her in a flash, his hands firm on her shoulders, their faces inches apart. Her breath was hot, her violet eyes locking onto his, brimming with raw emotion. "You're not going back to them," Marcus growled, voice thick with resolve, a vow forged in the crucible of life and death. "Never." Lirien's silver skin flared brighter, as if his words had kindled a fire in her soul. "Then let's show them what they can't control," she said, eyes blazing, voice sharp yet hopeful. In that moment, amid the nebula's screams and the din of battle, they weren't just allies, they were two souls defying the cosmos. Marcus lunged back to the pilot's seat, fingers flying over the controls, activating the experimental photon lance, a human-made weapon, untested in combat, a mad gamble like Marcus himself. "Guide me!" he shouted, eyes glued to the screen. Lirien, with preternatural senses, stood beside him, hands dancing over the auxiliary console like a symphony. 30-degree angle, now!" she commanded, voice crisp. Marcus fired, a blinding beam tearing through the void, slamming into the architect ship's shields. The explosion lit up the nebula, the enemy's hull cracking. But they didn't retreat, 4 smaller ships, swift as wolves, emerged from the nebula's depths, encircling Starlance. "They don't give up easy," Lirien said, breath ragged, but her eyes fearless. Marcus gripped the controls, a fierce grin spreading. "Good. Neither do we." He dove Starlance through a narrow gap between 2 massive asteroids, a suicidal path only a lunatic like Marcus would attempt. Rock fragments scraped the hull, metal shrieking like the nebula's wail. Lirien held fast, but her eyes never left Marcus, gleaming with newfound hope. As Starlance emerged into a fleeting calm within the nebula, she turned to him, voice soft but heavy with feeling. "You make me feel I can be more than what they made me." Marcus met her gaze, heart racing, not just from battle but from the magnetic pull between them. "You already are," he said, voice rough with conviction. But the moment shattered as a figure stepped from the rear corridor. Marcus spun, pistol drawn in a blur. Captain Harlan, his old comrade, presumed dead 2 years ago, stood there, a cold smirk on his lips, a gun aimed at Lirien. "Kane," he said, voice venomous. "She's worth more than this galaxy." Marcus lunged, but Harlan raised a hand, activating a small device. An explosion rocked Starlance, engines screaming, the ship spiraling toward a massive asteroid. Marcus crashed to the floor, eyes locked on Harlan, his heart roaring. This wasn't just a chase, it was a betrayal that would change everything. The escape pod drifted in the heart of the Klyros Nebula, a speck of dust in a crimson ocean where light twisted like blood-soaked waves. Marcus Kane, sweat streaking his brow, hunched over the pod's cramped console, fingers racing across flickering buttons, checking systems groaning under the void's pressure. The explosion of Starlance haunted him, a blaze of fire like a warning from the nebula itself. "Harlan!" he snarled, voice low as a blade, eyes scanning the dim screen. "He sold us out. But why her?" The question hung heavy, as oppressive as the darkness around them. Harlan, his brother in arms, trusted through countless missions, now a traitor, and that truth cut Marcus deeper than any wound. Lirien sat across from him, slender arms wrapped around herself, her silver skin glinting under the red glow filtering through the pod's transparent hull. The spare flight suit hung loose on her frame, but her violet eyes, though anxious, burned with a resolute fire. She shivered not from cold but from jagged memories clawing their way back. "I remember more," she whispered, her melodic voice fracturing, each word a cost in pain. "The architects, they implanted something in me. A genetic code. A power they couldn't control." Marcus froze, spinning to face her, brows knitted. "What power?" he demanded, voice urgent, sensing the answer could shift the stars. Lirien looked up, her gaze locking onto his, a mix of fear and defiance. "I can destroy them. Or save them," she said, voice trembling yet weighted with destiny. "They called me the Spark, a force that could reshape or obliterate the galaxy." The word, galaxy, rang like a bell, thickening the air in the pod. Marcus's heart pounded, not just from the revelation but from Lirien's eyes, fragile as starlight, yet radiant as a supernova. She wasn't just an experiment, she was a secret that could forge or break the cosmos. "You're not a weapon," he said, voice steely, his hand brushing her cheek, feeling the strange warmth of her silver skin. "You're Lirien. And I won't let anyone take you." Lirien's smile, though faint, shone like a star through the dark, banishing the void's chill. In that moment, between life and death, they leaned into each other, lips meeting in a fierce kiss, a supernova igniting. The pod thrummed with energy from Lirien's body, her silver skin blazing, sending invisible ripples through the nebula. The kiss wasn't just passion, it was rebellion, a defiance of the architect's cold logic and Harlan's betrayal. Marcus held her close, their heartbeats merging, two flames burning as one. But the moment shattered as a violent jolt shook the pod, the crimson light outside eclipsed by a massive shadow. An architect ship, its obsidian hull gleaming like liquid stone, loomed, its colossal mechanical arms engulfing the pod. Marcus pulled Lirien behind him, pulse pistol gripped tight, eyes icy. "They want you alive," he said, voice low but defiant. "But they'll have to go through me." Lirien squeezed his hand, her fingers cold yet steadfast, her voice hard as steel. "Together, we'll make them regret this." Her violet eyes flashed, no longer a victim but a warrior ready to face her fate. They stood shoulder to shoulder, breaths mingling, braced for an unrelenting fight within the enemy's heart. But a faint signal blinked on the console, cutting through the tension. Marcus frowned, checking the screen, a brief, encrypted message from someone named Kale. "Trust me, I'll get you out." It read, terse but laced with desperate urgency. Marcus and Lirien exchanged a glance, their hearts beating in sync with suspicion. After Harlan, trust was a luxury. Ally or another trap? Marcus tightened his grip on the pistol, eyes scanning the architect's ship's dark interior, where metallic hisses echoed like whispers of death. "Whatever it is," he muttered, hands still clasping Lirien's, "we face it together." The nebula outside seemed to growl, as if the universe awaited their next move. The interior of the architect's ship was a frozen void, its metal walls glinting with a cold, sterile light, as if forged from the nebula's darkest shadows. Marcus, Kane, and Lirien stood confined in a crystalline cell, its transparent walls shimmering like liquid diamond, reflecting the crimson glow from deep within the ship. The light offered no warmth, only amplifying the cell's harsh perfection, a prison designed to crush hope. Beyond an energy barrier, the architects loomed, towering figures in radiant cloaks of molten crystal, their featureless faces observing the captives like failed experiments. Marcus clenched his fists, muscles taut, his sharp eyes scanning for any flaw in their cage. Lirien stood beside him, her silver skin blazing defiantly despite the oppressive air, her violet eyes burning with an unquenchable fire. "Spark!" a voice intoned, cold and emotionless, like metal grinding stone. "You have corrupted our design. Human emotions are a flaw, a stain on perfection." The words sliced through the air, sharp as a blade. Lirien straightened, her chest heaving, her silver skin flaring like a challenge. "A flaw?" she shot back, voice trembling but resolute. "It's what makes me alive! You created me, but you can't take what makes me me." Marcus glanced at her, his heart pounding at her defiance. He stepped closer, shoulder to shoulder, his voice a low growl dripping with contempt. You want to control everything, but you know nothing of true strength. Emotion isn't chaos, it's a fire you'll never touch. The architect tilted its head, as if puzzled by the audacity of a species it deemed inferior. Your strength, human, is disorder, it said, its tone flat but laced with menace. We will correct it. The spark will be reshaped. A spherical device descended from the ceiling, emitting a sickly blue glow, and before Marcus could react, it unleashed an energy wave into Lirien. She collapsed screaming, her body convulsing as her memories were invaded, her mind torn apart. Stop it! Marcus roared, slamming his fists against the crystal, blood seeping from his knuckles. The walls didn't budge, but his cries echoed, raw with pain and fury. Lirien, writhing, reached through a narrow gap, her fingers brushing his, cold but unyielding. You are why I fight, she whispered, voice faint but heavy with will. That connection, a fleeting moment of love and trust between two souls, struck like lightning. Lirien's energy erupted, a silver radiance sweeping the cell, overloading the device in a blinding explosion. The crystal walls shattered, fragments falling like a shower of stars. Marcus hauled Lirien to her feet, pulling her close, feeling her racing heartbeat. We've got to move, he said, voice rough but steady, pulse pistol in hand. They sprinted through the ship's corridors, dodging robotic sentinels with gleaming metal bodies, their energy weapons hissing like the nebula's wail. Alarms blared, red lights pulsing like the veins of a living beast. A figure emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. Shorter than an architect, with pained blue eyes and a body fused with machinery, glowing circuits tracing his arms. Follow me, he urged, voice low and urgent. I'm Kale. I was an experiment like you. He looked at Lirien, his gaze heavy with empathy. Marcus gripped his pistol, wary, but Lirien nodded, her instincts sensing truth. Kale led them through twisting corridors, evading patrols, to a control chamber aglow with blue light. But before they could act, a figure stepped forward, clad in architect armor that shimmered like obsidian. Harlan! Marcus snarled, blood boiling. Harlan, now a full traitor, smirked coldly, his voice venomous. She's the future, Kane. You're just cosmic dust. Marcus swung, but Harlan dodged, raising a small device that triggered a teleportal. Blue light engulfed them, yanking them into another dimension, where the air was thick and light warped. Kale muttered, voice tense. We're in the Council's domain. Marcus clutched Lirien's hand, feeling her warmth amidst the dark. Trap or fate, he knew they'd face it as one, two flames that refused to be extinguished. The teleportal's blue light faded, and Marcus, Kane, Lirien, and Kale tumbled into a colossal crystal arena, a labyrinth of light forged from a million shattered diamonds. Towering transparent walls reflected the Klyros Nebula's crimson glow, twisting reality into a kaleidoscope of distortion. Around them, hundreds of architects from the High Council stood motionless, towering entities in radiant cloaks, their featureless faces cold as gods without mercy. Their gazes locked onto the intruders, unyielding and cruel, as if the galaxy were merely a test in their hands. Marcus balled his fists, muscles coiled, eyes scanning the arena for an escape. Lirien stood close, her silver skin shimmering, violet eyes blazing with defiance. Kale, his blue eyes heavy with pain, gripped his weapon tighter, his hybrid body trembling as if warring with itself. Harlan emerged from the shadows, his architect armor glinting like liquid obsidian, a venomous smirk curling his lips. The Council demands a trial, he said, pointing at Lirien, voice sharp and cold. The spark fights, or you both die. Marcus seized Lirien's hand, feeling her warm energy, a reminder they weren't alone. We're not your puppets, he growled, voice echoing in the arena, challenging the emotionless gods. Lirien nodded, her eyes aflame, as if her inner fire roared. They think they made me, she said, voice steely. But you gave me a reason to live. Her words, though soft, pierced Marcus's heart, making him feel the universe stood with them. The arena quaked, the crystal floor splitting, and from the fissures, experimental beasts surged, grotesque hybrids of metal and flesh, their red eyes glowing like furnaces, claws sharp as blades. Marcus drew his pulse pistol, firing with human bravado, his shots precise and fearless. Lirien moved like light, each strike unleashing silver energy, obliterating foes in dazzling bursts. Kale, with mechanical precision but a human heart, fired deftly, shielding them both. They fought as one, a perfect blend of chaos and order, human fire and architect strength. But each wave drained Lirien, her silver glow dimming, her breaths ragged. Marcus glanced at her, heart tightening, yet her eyes remained resolute, vowing not to yield. Harlan, perched on a crystal dais, activated a device, blue light flaring. Lirien froze, her violet eyes going blank, her body turning on Marcus with terrifying speed. "No!" she screamed, voice fracturing, fighting the control, but her limbs moved like a puppet, driven by Harlan's device. Marcus dodged her energy blade, the strike grazing his shoulder, leaving a scorch. "Lirien, I trust you!" he shouted, refusing to strike back, eyes locked on hers, brimming with unwavering faith. He lunged, defying danger, and wrapped her in his arms, his heart pounding to break her chains. That embrace, raw with love and resolve, ignited the spark's energy, a silver radiance sweeping the arena, shattering Harlan's device in a blinding explosion. The hybrids dissolved, the crystal floor cracked. Harlan, wounded, blood dripping from his temple, staggered but smirked, triggering a teleportal and vanishing. The High Council, for the first time, faltered, their emotionless whispers turning chaotic. Kale yanked Marcus and Lirien, now exhausted, toward another portal, his eyes pained. "I can't come with you," he said, voice firm yet resolute. "I'm part of them, but I choose to help you." He shoved them through, blue light swallowing them, and stayed behind, facing the Council's wrath. Marcus yelled, but the portal sealed, leaving Kale in darkness. They crashed onto a strange planet, strewn with ancient ruins, moss-covered machines and walls etched with glowing runes. Marcus held Lirien, feeling her faint heartbeat. "We're not done," he whispered, eyes ablaze. Though Kale was gone, their fire still burned, ready to defy the galaxy. The alien planet sprawled before Marcus and Lirien like a graveyard of time, a wreckage of a civilization long forgotten. Towering machines, broken spires choked with green moss and withered vines, stood silent in the heavy, stifling air. Stone walls bore glowing runes, their faint light the last breath of a dead world. Wind howled through cracked stone, carrying whispers of the past, as if the ghosts of this civilization watched. Marcus held Lirien's hand, sensing her tremble, not from cold, but from a deep pain, as if the planet dragged her back to the shadows of her origin. Her silver skin shimmered, but her violet eyes were clouded with dread, battling unbidden memories. Lirien halted before a ruined wall, her slender fingers tracing the glowing symbols, her body quaking. "I was created here," she whispered, voice breaking, each word tearing at her soul. Flashes seared her mind, sterile chambers, faceless figures in crystal cloaks, and a burning energy coursing through her, threatening to consume her will. "I'm part of the Spark Project," she said, eyes distant. "They designed me to reshape the galaxy, to control or destroy everything. But the human emotions in me, they ruined the architect's plan." Marcus squeezed her hand, his gaze a steady flame. "Your past doesn't define you," he said, voice low but fierce. "You're who you are now, standing here with me. And I won't let you forget it." Lirien's smile, though fragile, shone like starlight through gloom, but the moment shattered as the sky trembled. A fleet of architect ships, their obsidian hulls gleaming, tore through the clouds, led by a familiar figure, Harlan, now a cyborg hybrid, his body pulsing with blue energy circuits. "She belongs to us!" he roared over comms, voice twisted with hate, as his ship unleashed crimson beams, cracking the earth. Marcus yanked Lirien into the ruins, dodging explosions that hurled stone shards. They dove into a deep cavern, where an ancient machine loomed, its dusty metal shell faintly glowing, the last weapon of a civilization the architects had crushed. Marcus ran his hands over the console, searching for signs of life. If this works, we've got a shot, he said, voice urgent. Lirien, eyes flaring as she touched the machine, felt her spark energy resonate with it. I can control it, she said, voice resolute. She pressed her hands to the core, silver light erupting, and the machine shuddered awake, unleashing a blinding beam that obliterated Harlan's fleet in a radiant explosion. But Harlan survived, leaping from the wreckage, his cyborg form gleaming, charging Lirien with terrifying speed. Marcus intercepted, grappling amidst dust and smoke, blood and metal clashing. Lirien, channeling all her strength, triggered the machine again, opening a swirling energy portal. She shoved Harlan through, his scream fading as the portal sealed. But the machine quaked violently, its core's light turning chaotic, signaling an imminent explosion. Run! Marcus shouted, dragging Lirien from the cave. They found an old scout ship, dust covered in the ruins, and leaped inside as the ground collapsed. Marcus fired the engines, the ship roaring to life, escaping the planet as it erupted in a sea of fire, shockwaves rocking their craft. Lirien slumped in the co-pilot's seat, her silver glow faint, breaths shallow. I don't know if I can go on, she whispered, voice heavy with despair, as if the spark were draining her life. Marcus knelt beside her, cradling her, his hand brushing her black hair. You're the fiercest flame I've ever seen, he said, voice unwavering, eyes burning with faith. We're not done, Lirien. Never. In the dim cockpit, amidst the world's ashes, their fire endured, unyielding against the dangers ahead. The battered scout ship, its scarred hull etched with battle's marks, glided through the Klyros Nebula, the crimson glow of swirling gases painting it like dried blood. Marcus Kane piloted with a veteran's precision, his sharp eyes betraying the exhaustion of relentless combat. Beside him, Lirien sat silent, her silver skin dim, violet eyes heavy with the toll of the spark's power. Yet as a floating outpost emerged from the nebula, a steel fortress aglow with defiant lights, a spark of hope flared in them both. This bastion, forged from salvaged wrecks and the resolve of survivors, was a haven for human rebels and escaped architect experiments, souls who refused to be chained. They landed in a bustling hangar, the clang of metal mingling with the voices of survivors, humans with weathered faces and hybrids with glowing circuits. The outpost's commander, a steely woman named Zara, approached, her short hair dusted with grime, her gaze sharp yet sincere. We've heard of you, Spark, Zara said, locking eyes with Lirien, her voice resonant with respect. You could change everything. Lirien, though drained, stood tall, her silver skin glinting like a vow. Marcus recounted their journey, from the chance meeting in the void, the battles with Harlan, to Kale's sacrifice, each word weighing the command room with gravity. Zara nodded, her face darkening as she revealed the chilling truth. The architects were building a superweapon, the Black Star, a massive crystal sphere capable of erasing all emotion-driven civilizations, turning the galaxy into a cold machine of order. Lirien gripped Marcus's hand, her violet eyes blazing with resolve. I won't let them win, she said, voice firm, as if it were her last flame. Marcus squeezed back, feeling the unbreakable bond between them, a thread stronger than steel. In the days that followed, they immersed themselves in the rebel life. Lirien, guided by an escaped experiment named Rin, learned to harness the spark's energy, taming its wild fire into a precise weapon. In the training yard, her silver light erupted, weaving radiant arcs that left rebels in awe. Marcus, meanwhile, worked with Zara, crafting battle plans, analyzing Black Star data, his voice steady as he pinpointed weaknesses on holographic maps, though his eyes always sought Lirien, his beacon in the dark. The night before the battle, they stood on the outpost's observation deck, the crimson nebula a surreal canvas around them. The air was cold, but their closeness banished the chill. Lirien, her black hair fluttering in artificial wind, turned to Marcus, her violet eyes trembling. I'm afraid of losing you, she whispered, voice breaking, the fear heavier than the spark's burden. Marcus pulled her close, arms tight, feeling her heartbeat sync with his. You won't lose me, he said, voice certain, eyes alight with conviction. We're a team forever. He leaned down, their lips meeting in a deep, searing kiss, fierce as a supernova. The spark's energy flared from Lirien, silver light bathing the outpost like a lighthouse, drawing odd gazes from rebels below. The kiss wasn't just love, it was a promise, a defiance of the architect's logic, a testament to humanity's unbreakable spirit. But the moment shattered as an emergency signal shrieked, slicing the silence. The deck screen flared, displaying scout data. The black star was active, its crystal sphere draining the nebula's energy, and an architect fleet, hundreds of obsidian ships, was closing on the outpost. Zara burst in, face taut. "They're coming faster than we thought," she said, voice sharp. Marcus clasped Lirien's hand, their eyes locking, no words needed to know the final battle had begun. The nebula outside seemed to roar, as if the universe challenged them to rise, and in their hearts, humanity's fire burned bright, ready to face the dark. The Klyros Nebula blazed like a battlefield of gods, its crimson light swirling like boiling blood, torn apart by radiant explosions and the roar of engines. The rebels, led by Marcus, Kane, and Lirien, plunged into a desperate war, their fleet, a patchwork of human steel and scavenged architect tech, slicing through the void like silver blades. Across from them, the architect armada, their obsidian hulls gleaming like liquid stone, commanded by the High Council, unleashed waves of devastating energy, each strike shaking the cosmos. Marcus sat in the command cockpit of the lead ship, hands clamped on the controls, weaving through enemy fire with the reckless courage of a pilot who knew no fear. Sweat streaked his brow, but his eyes were razor-sharp, locked on every blast and signal flashing across the screens. Beside him, Lirien stood resolute, her silver skin aglow, violet eyes burning like an unquenchable flame. She raised her hands, the spark's energy erupting in shimmering arcs, bolstering the rebel fleet's shields. Each use of her power sent tremors through her, her silver glow dimming, but she never wavered. "We have to hold!" she shouted over the battle's din, her voice steely yet fierce with resolve. Marcus glanced at her, his heart pounding at her unbreakable spirit, as if she were a lighthouse guiding him through the dark. "You've got this," he replied, voice a low rumble, throwing the ship into a daring spin to dodge a crimson beam that ripped through space. A transmission from Zara crackled through, urgent and strained. "If the Black Star fully activates, it's over. Every civilization, every emotion." Marcus gritted his teeth, eyes locking with Lirien's. "We're going in," he said, voice unwavering. Lirien nodded, her silver skin flaring, as if ready to face her destiny. They led a small strike team, weaving through enemy fire, landing on the Black Star's surface, a labyrinth of crystal corridors glinting like a maze of death. Inside, the air was heavy, bathed in a sickly blue glow. They pressed toward the core, only to face Harlan, now nearly fully architect, his cyborg body pulsing with energy circuits, his face twisted with ambition. "She's ours!" he roared, voice half human, half machine, lunging at Lirien with terrifying speed. Lirien unleashed a burst of spark energy, a silver supernova that hurled him back, cracking the crystal floor. Marcus fired relentlessly, shielding her, his eyes blazing with fury. "She belongs to no one," he bellowed, each shot a declaration of war. They pushed deeper, reaching the core where the High Council waited, towering figures in radiant cloaks, motionless like emotionless gods. "The spark is our destiny," one intoned, its voice a cold echo of metal. "You will fulfill your purpose, bring order to the galaxy." Lirien grasped Marcus's hand, her silver skin brighter than ever, a defiance of the cosmos itself. "My purpose is freedom," she declared, voice sharp and unyielding. She raised her hands, the spark's energy merging with Marcus's resolve, sending a silver wave through the Black Star's core. The machine shuddered, its blue light turning chaotic, metallic screams rising like a dying beast's wail. Harlan, unyielding, lunged from the shadows, energy claws aimed at Lirien. Marcus fired a precise pulse shot, piercing Harlan's chest, ending the threat forever. "That's for Kale," he muttered, eyes cold as steel. The Black Star began to collapse, explosions rippling through its structure. Marcus dragged Lirien to a nearby escape pod, launching as the superweapon detonated, a shockwave obliterating the architect fleet, its radiant light flooding the nebula like a victory cry. In the cramped pod, Marcus held Lirien, feeling her heartbeat meld with his. "We did it," she whispered, her silver glow faint but her violet eyes alight with hope. Marcus kissed her forehead, voice rough but certain. "For freedom. For us." The Klyros Nebula, now ablaze with light, sang humanity's anthem, unbroken, eternal. The Klyros Nebula, once a crucible of blood and fire, now shimmered like a canvas of light, its crimson gases softening, as if the universe exhaled after the storm. Marcus, Kane, and Lirien guided their scout ship back to the rebel outpost, a steel bastion floating in the void, now radiant with lights and cheers. As they stepped into the hangar, a crowd of rebels, humans with battle-hardened faces and architect experiments with glowing circuits, surged around them, hailing them as heroes. Shouts of spark echoed, but Lirien, though smiling, stood quietly beside Marcus, her silver skin dim, violet eyes heavy with a deeper truth. Marcus held her hand, feeling its faint warmth, sensing she carried a secret greater than their victory. In the days after the battle, Lirien felt a profound shift within her. The spark's energy, once a force of destruction, now pulsed with a new rhythm, gentle, vibrant, like the heartbeat of life itself. That night, in the command room, she shared her discovery with Marcus and Zara, her voice trembling yet bright with hope. "The spark isn't just for destruction," she said, eyes gleaming. "It can create, bring life back to the dead." Marcus gazed at her, heart racing, not just at the idea but at the fire in her eyes, a flame that didn't just fight but built. Zara, her stern face softening, nodded. "If you're right, we could reshape the galaxy." Lirien proposed a bold plan: lead the rebels to a lifeless planet in Klyros, a gray husk abandoned by the architects, to test her newfound power. The planet loomed before the rebel fleet like a cosmic corpse, its cracked surface barren, its air choking, devoid of life. Marcus stood with Lirien atop a desolate hill, cold winds whistling through stone, carrying the scent of dust and ash. She raised her hands, silver light erupting, spreading like waves of radiance, seeping into the dead earth. Before their eyes, a miracle unfolded: green grass sprouted from barren soil, trees rose, leaves swaying under faint starlight. A glittering river carved through the valley, and clouds gathered overhead, heavy with the promise of rain. The rebels, silent, erupted in cheers, their eyes alight with hope. Lirien turned to Marcus, voice soft but certain. "This is our new home." He smiled, squeezing her hand, eyes burning with faith. "You did it, Lirien. You brought a world back." But the moment broke as a figure emerged from the hill's base, an architect, towering in a radiant cloak yet unarmed. Rebels raised weapons poised, but Lirien signaled them to stand down, her eyes locked on the entity. The architect knelt, an unprecedented act, its voice cold yet strangely sincere. "We were wrong," it said, each word carved from stone. "Emotion, which we scorned, is life's pinnacle. Teach us." Marcus and Lirien exchanged a glance, their hearts beating as one, not for victory, but for the chance to change the galaxy. "We'll guide you," Marcus said, voice resonant. "But on one condition: freedom for all experiments, and no more control." The architect nodded, a silent vow between former foes. The nebula outside seemed to hum, as if the universe celebrated their triumph. Months after the Black Star's fall, the new Klyros colony gleamed like a green jewel in the nebula's heart, no longer the graveyard of stars. Lush forests stretched beneath a twinkling sky, rivers shimmered silver under starlight, and homes of steel and stone rose, blending with repurposed ancient ruins. Marcus, Kane, and Lirien stood atop a verdant hill, cool winds carrying the scent of grass and wildflowers. Below, the colony buzzed with life, humans with faces lit by joy, and freed architect experiments, their glowing circuits mingling with laughter and chatter. Some experiments, clumsy but earnest, learned to embrace, to share joy, even to weep, emotions once forbidden. Lirien, stronger than ever, stood close to Marcus, her silver skin now soft as moonlight, no longer a wild flame but a warm, enduring glow. Her black hair danced in the breeze, her violet eyes sparkling with hope yet tinged with searching, as if she still sought her deeper purpose. She clasped Marcus's hand, fingers entwined, his warmth anchoring her. "I thought I was nothing," she said, voice gentle, resonant as a nebula's song. "An experiment, a tool without a soul. But you showed me I'm everything." Her words, though quiet, carried the weight of their shared trials, a vow between souls who'd conquered the dark. Marcus turned to her, eyes ablaze with love and conviction, pulling her close, arms a shield against the cosmos. "You're not just a spark," he said, voice rough but certain. "You're the fire in my heart, Lirien. And that fire will never fade." He leaned down, their lips meeting in a deep, fierce kiss, searing as a supernova yet tender as starlight. The spark's energy flared from Lirien, silver light painting the Klyros sky like fireworks, its arcs a hymn to life. From below, colonists looked up, cheers rising, as if witnessing not just love but a symbol of hope and humanity's defiance. Zara, now leader of the Klyros Alliance, stood at the hill's base, a rare smile softening her stern face. Beside her was an unexpected figure, Kale, who'd sacrificed himself in the crystal arena yet somehow survived, his hybrid body repaired, blue eyes glinting with renewed hope. "They changed everything," Zara said, voice resonant, gazing at Marcus and Lirien. Kale nodded, circuits pulsing on his arms. "I was a bridge between architects and humans," he said, voice thick with feeling. "But they're the flame guiding the galaxy." Kale's mysterious return bolstered the alliance, as if the universe granted them another chance. The Klyros Alliance, a beacon of freedom and emotion, grew ceaselessly. Scout ships, forged from human and architect tech, departed the colony, carrying messages of a galaxy where all could feel, love, and fight. Marcus and Lirien, at the Alliance's heart, worked tirelessly, he training pilots, she teaching experiments to wield their energies, turning past pain into future strength. One evening, as the Crimson Nebula glowed through the command room's window, Zara and Kale unveiled a plan: dispatch envoys to distant civilizations, from high-tech worlds to primitive colonies, to inspire and forge a galactic network against any threat to freedom. Marcus squeezed Lirien's hand, their eyes locked, knowing their legacy wasn't just Klyros but a galaxy ignited by humanity's fire, unyielding, resilient, eternal. Years passed, and the Klyros Nebula, once the graveyard of stars, became a radiant beacon of peace, a symbol of rebirth and hope. From the observation deck of a gleaming Alliance ship, Marcus, Kane, and Lirien gazed down at the Klyros colony, now the heart of a harmonious galaxy. Verdant forests shimmered under starlight, cities of steel and crystal rose, where humans, architect experiments, and distant civilizations coexisted. Ships flitted like flocks of light, bearing trade, knowledge, and tales of freedom. Marcus, his battle scars faded, stood tall as an Alliance ambassador, his eyes still sharp but softened by purpose. Lirien, beside him, her silver skin glowing like moonlight, violet eyes radiant with faith, was the living emblem of the spark, not just power, but undying hope. Below, Klyros thrived. The architects, once cold enforcers of order, now called themselves the Reborn. They learned to feel, stumbling but sincere, from the joy of an embrace to the sorrow of loss, even love. Their icy crystal cloaks were replaced with softer garb, reflecting their transformed souls. Marcus and Lirien had spent years guiding them, not with commands but through compassion and resilience. In Klyros's halls, the Reborn worked alongside humans and experiments, building a society rooted in connection, not control, where every soul was valued. Marcus clasped Lirien's hand, feeling her warmth, the invisible thread that pulled them through darkness to this light. "We started with nothing," Lirien said, voice soft yet resonant as a cosmic hymn, her violet eyes glowing as she surveyed the colony. "A lost pilot, a nameless experiment, in the frigid void. And now, we have everything." Her words, simple yet profound, carried the weight of their battles, sacrifices, and love that reshaped the galaxy. Marcus smiled, proud yet tender, pulling her closer, his arms anchoring the moment. "No," he replied, voice rough but certain. "We have each other. And that's enough." He leaned down, their lips meeting in a deep, searing kiss, fierce as a supernova, gentle as starlight. The spark's energy flared from Lirien, silver light rippling through space, a reminder that the human heart, chaotic, fragile, was the galaxy's greatest force. From a balcony below, Zara, now the Alliance's supreme leader, watched with a rare smile. Beside her stood Kale, the bridge between humans and the reborn, his blue eyes bright with pride. "They didn't just save Klyros," Zara said, voice resonant. "They gave the galaxy a reason to dream." Kale nodded, circuits shimmering. "They're the fire that lit the stars," he said, voice thick with awe. Under Marcus, Lirien, Zara, and Kale's guidance, the Klyros Alliance sent hundreds of ships to the stars, spreading tales of the spark and the human pilot who defied fate. From advanced worlds to backwater colonies, their stories sparked peaceful revolutions, forging a vast network of allies. One evening, as the Crimson Nebula glowed through the ship's window, Marcus and Lirien stood together, gazing at the twinkling cosmos. They recalled their chance meeting in the void, a lost pilot, a nameless experiment, and a spark that changed everything. From that moment, they built a legacy, not just Klyros, but a galaxy ablaze with compassion, love, and humanity's resilience. "What did we prove?" Lirien asked, voice soft, eyes searching his. Marcus smiled, brushing her cheek. "That no matter how deep the darkness, humanity's fire will always find a way to shine." The Klyros Nebula, now their home, shimmered like an eternal vow that humanity's light would forever transform the dark into eternity.